All right, good morning. I'm really excited to dive into mindset today because for a number of reasons, but one of them is just because it really is what I've been trying to grow in. And as I talk about some resources and some links and like share some stuff with you guys, I'm really hopeful that you'll kind of see mindset in a new way, or that at least it will like shift things a little bit for you. So this is what I have. I don't have any slides or anything like that for today. I just have some notes. And if there is like something or a quote that I say that you guys would love to have, let me know and I'll make sure it goes in the email. Okay. So like if I'm reading something and you're like, wait, I want to write that down, like I can copy and paste it totally into the chat, but I can also put it in the replay email. And then I've got some links for some resources too. So I'll try to put basically just a ton of my notes and stuff into the replay email so that you guys can copy and paste and save. Does that sound good? Yeah. Okay. Because I want to make sure that you don't feel like you have to just like write so fast. Like I'd rather us have like the writing, but like some of the conversation about this and like our experiences and things like that while we're on the call. And then you guys can just copy and paste it later. So quick question. My video keeps lagging. Is it okay for you guys? Yeah, it's okay. All right. It's back now, but for like a whole minute, it was like all like choppy and stuff. So I just wanted to make sure before we like dive in. Also, did you guys have a chance to look at the workbook that I'd sent you from Kate Crocco? No, that's okay. We'll do it together. Maybe go ahead and open it. Find it from your email. And Jessica had a look at it. Okay. So she is a Christian. She's a psychotherapist and a mindset coach. And so this specific workbook is actually has a bit of a Christian perspective, but there's still a lot of great exercises if that is not the view that you have. It has some great questions. So if you want to have that open, because we're actually going to, I think after we go through some of the other pieces, my plan is for us to actually work through a few of those questions and prompts together while we're on this call. So you got it, Crystal? You found it? You're good? It's loading. Okay, no worries. Well, we won't get there for a few minutes anyway. So, in my description in this email, I said, we'll be diving into a conversation all about mindset. So like what it is, how we can develop our mindset and how we can make shifts to support our growth and more. So I want to start with kind of like some basic like definitions of what mindset is. And mindset is just a set of assumptions, methods, or notations is one of the words, held by one or more people or groups of people. And so just talking about like that definition in and of itself, which here, let me just copy this for you, throw it in the chat as we talk about it. This is one of the definitions. It's just a set of assumptions. And I really like that they said held by one or more people or groups of people, because I actually think that the more I have discovered some of the mindsets that I've had to shift and grow out of, the more I realize that most of them are mindsets that were either taught to me, that were family mindsets, or this place of employment mindset, or this a lot of times they are held by groups of people. And that's what I've noticed about myself. So I just wanted to point that out, because I think as we start talking about this today, I think you'll start seeing, oh yeah, this is something that I learned, and sometimes, and I mean, in this example right now, I mean, the three of us, we're all from the same area in Ontario, and we are all white. You know what I mean? Like we're all very much a majority culture where we live too. And that affects mindset and things. And there's just so much, especially that I've just been diving into, or I have so many friends that are posting more about different things. And anyway, so it's just good for us to be aware of that. And then the other piece of this one definition was that a mindset can also be seen as a rising out of a person's worldview or philosophy of life. So a lot of times the mindsets that we have come from this deeper understanding of like, this is my worldview, this is how I see the world. And so then these mindsets are formed out of that, or this is my philosophy of life, and now this is how I live that out. So the other thing that I have here that, and none of these are like direct quotes. They're like all kind of little pieces of things. But one is that your beliefs play a pivotal role in what you want and whether you achieve it. And so it is your mindset that plays a significant role in determining achievement and success. And I think one of the things that I struggled with in my early adult years was wanting to achieve, or like I had these dreams, but I was literally like self-sabotaging because my mindset, which is like a higher level, would be blocking me. So it's like, even though this is something I wanted, I had all these blocks and all these things that were, not allowing me to actually achieve those things because of what my mindsets were. And so if you do, and let me find the link for this book. I'll go to Amazon so that at least like, it's just like a link to an actual book rather than Mindset by Carol Dweck. Okay, here we go. This one. So there's a couple. She has Mindset, the New Psychology of Success, and then she has Mindset, How You Can Fulfill Your Potential. So I'll just link to one of them, but this lady and her, a lot of her stuff is what is quoted. There's the link to one of her books on Amazon, just so you can see that. So she's quoted a lot in the conversations about mindset, because her book that she put out in 2007 was kind of like a new perspective. And so to summarize a little bit about what she talks about, there's two main mindsets that are talked about in the world. So when we talk about mindset, we're literally just talking about the way that we see and perceive the stories, all these things that go on in our head. And so, but we can have generally either a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And these are the two things that are talked a lot about in like the mindset world. And so if we have a fixed mindset, we believe that qualities are inborn, that we're born with things, that things are fixed and that we can't change it. Like, this is the way I was born. And so this is the skills that I have. And those with a growth mindset believe that abilities can be developed and strengthened through commitment, through hard work, through exposing ourselves to new things. And so how do we change our mindset? We learn to focus on the process rather than just the outcome. So that's a really big thing, and has always been a big thing for me, because I am naturally wired as more of a fixed mindset person. Like, because I'm analytical, I'm logical, I'm very like boom, 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 boom. I'm very outcome driven. I'm all about numbers. And I'm going to read you a few quotes, and you might laugh because you'll literally be like, oh yeah, I get that, Catherine. And so for me, learning how to focus on the process of something has really, really supported me in thinking differently and shifting how I think about certain things. And I'm going to share some examples of that in a few more minutes. I just kind of want to lay the groundwork for the conversation. So people with these two mindsets actually think differently and also react to information differently. So we think differently and we react to information differently. So in particular, they respond differently to information about performance. So this is just one example. So people with a fixed mindset, the brain is most active when they're being given information about how well they have done. For example, test results or grades. So information about how they have done, how well they have done, is when their brain is most active. Me. Okay, like that's a very clear example. And actually, as I have kind of learned more about mindset, and this has only been like the last couple of years that I've been kind of trying to understand this and really expose myself to some new things, I've realized that what I think is a lot of type A people who like really go for things and are organized and are achievers and are ambitious and are like getting stuff done. A lot of the women in the quarterly and like in the Modern Planner community that I attract, I think that naturally a lot of us are fixed mindset because we like the numbers and the information and the like, you know what I mean? So it's just something I'm becoming more aware of, and how do I continue to grow and how do I encourage that? So in people with a growth mindset, the brain is most active when they are being told what they could do to improve, which is not me. Like, very clearly not me. I used to hate being told how to improve. Like, getting constructive feedback was like one of the worst things, because I wanted to do better, but I would literally just beat myself up because I didn't do as good as I thought I did. And I wouldn't actually hear the feedback for what it was. And I wouldn't be like, my brain would not be active. It would only be talking to myself. I want to know it, not be told. Yeah. And so I think that that's a lot. So anyway, this is just interesting things. And I'm not saying that like any of us are specifically like fixed mindset or growth mindset. It's just interesting to see some of these differences and realize, for me, part of my journey has been realizing like where some of this shows up and how it hinders me, especially with getting feedback. And so, yes. So it's a very different approach. So instead of how did I do, to what can I do better next time? That is kind of like the difference. And learning how to shift to, okay, how did I do? Great. I still need to hear that, but I also want to hear, and I'm open to hearing, what can I do better next time? And in some situations, that's easier to do and ask that question and receive the feedback than in others. So one is about how they are perceived, and one is about how they can learn. That's the difference. So like, how did I do? How am I perceived? Versus one is about how they can learn. And obviously, one is more likely to lead to better results in the future because it's about constantly improving and learning. And so what I have found in my own life is one of my values is learning. But I had learning in a very clear box of what learning meant to me. And learning meant to me reading books and going to courses and doing a post-grad business degree, which I did, right? Like, that was learning, as opposed to actually like receiving the feedback and always pursuing better results and being open to what leaders or teachers or whatever said about me. And I was always focused about how I was perceived and what I was achieving in my learning situations, as opposed to it being open. So that's an example for me where I've realized over time, oh, I love it, Crystal. Learning is a realm I knew I could be successful in. So interesting. So it's just this is what mindset is. And so hopefully, Jessica, I would love to know your thoughts as we're kind of like going through this. Cause I didn't know exactly what your perspective on mindset was, but it felt like to you, it was kind of like woo. And you were a little hesitant, but I'd love to know, and even if it's, even if it's in the replay or after in the WhatsApp chat, it doesn't have to be live right now in the conversation. Okay, so the major difference between people and organizations who concentrate on ways, so this is another kind of way to look at it, is there's a big difference between people who concentrate on ways to reduce errors versus others who, in addition to worrying about errors, are also excited about chances to make discoveries. So that's, and here, I'll just put this whole thing in the chat because this is what we're, and so this is one of those other differences. So preoccupation with errors, the belief that the only way to improve performance is by reducing errors, seems to fit in the fixed mindset piece. So it's like when the focus is always on reducing the errors, get a higher mark, have less customer service inquiries, and the interest in discoveries and learning new things, it's a belief that performance improvements depend both on cutting errors and on making insights. And so that taps more into the growth mindset. So these are just some of like the kind of things that that I've found that I've tried to like keep in mind as I work on my mindset and the stories that I tell myself and all of these things. And then here's another one. I don't know how these are going to show up in the chat. They might actually, Crystal, can you just like put something simple like hi in the chat. That way it splits up these two big quotes, because otherwise they might like bump up against each other. There we go. Okay. Nice. Okay. So this is another one. Mindsets aren't just beliefs. They are beliefs that orient our reactions and tendencies. So that's the interesting thing about mindset, is that it's not just something that we believe in, but that belief is actually changing how we react to something. And so it's adjusting that. So that's what mindsets are. And they do, like, this is kind of like a combination of things from like an article somewhere that I had in a file. But they serve a number of cognitive functions. So for instance, they let us frame situations. They give us context to things. They direct our attention to what's most important so that we're not overwhelmed with information. So our mindsets and our beliefs and the way we react, like, they are helpful because they help us receive information and process it really, really quickly. The trouble is when the way we're processing it is hindering us from being able to grow. For instance, let's talk about money for a minute. I have had a huge mindset about money that I did not realize was so deeply ingrained. And in 2019, Joseph and I decided that one of the main areas we both wanted to really grow in was money and our understanding of that. Joseph dove into the very practical side of it. Now, we've always been great at budgeting. So like but it's been more of like understanding savings and investments and like actually learning how to run the numbers and project farther into our future. And, you know, as we're renewing our mortgage this year, like, he's doing math and has spreadsheets that like we did not do 5 years ago when we renewed our mortgage, just because he understands so much more, and trying to figure out like all the different interest rates and things on our line of credit, like, and really, really running the numbers. So he dove into the practical side of things, reading books like Ramit's I Will Teach You to Be Rich, and a couple other things. For me, I knew that budgeting and the practical side of budgeting, I was okay with. I was going to let him dive into that. But I knew for me, the biggest thing that I need to do with finances was switch my mindset and be able to start growing and breaking out of stuff. Working for a nonprofit can have a lot to do with it. Just in terms of like, you know, reinvesting all the money and different things. And like, there's just different things that I picked up from that. And being in a home raised my entire life where my parents were running a nonprofit, that really affected my mindset about money. So one of the biggest things that I did last year, now I have not listened to this podcast much this year, but I'm just going to share it with you. And I'm pretty sure I've shared this podcast before, but there's a podcast called For the Love of Money by Chris Harder. So one of the things that I have learned to do over the last few years is that when I'm realizing that I'm telling myself stories or have certain beliefs or certain mindsets about an area of my life, what I am trying to do is not just read things I'm comfortable with, but listen to things and read things that make me uncomfortable. Because that's really the only way that I'm able to like get pushed out of my comfort zone enough to actually like make a change or a shift or something. So the podcast that I listened to, and it says not interested anymore because you haven't listened. I haven't listened to any podcast pretty much all year, but this is the podcast For the Love of Money by Chris Harder, just in case you wanted to see like what the podcast looked like. And here's the thing. He is a very, very, very wealthy man who makes millions of dollars a year, who coaches people making 6 and 7 figures. So like he's, you know, and what I needed to do was hear from someone talking about different things like mortgages and why that's actually buying a home is not the smartest financial investment, and breaking things down and like talking about these different ways of making money and how like you can make money in different ways, and talking about how it's not like there's one pie that we all have to share. And if someone's making more money, that means we get less. Some of these are things that like I actually believe. Like I would have told you 2 years ago that buying a house is a really good financial investment. Now I would tell you I actually don't believe that is. And if we could go back, we probably wouldn't have bought a house. But we can't go back. We have it. We're in a good spot. We'd make a lot of money. But like, we're going to keep it. right? But some of these different things, or I would have told you that, yeah, if that person's making more money, I would feel like there's less money out there for me. Right. Whereas just in the last 24 hours, I received a proposal. I replied back with a counter offer and I got a pay increase. You know what I mean? Like that's not something I would have been comfortable doing in the past because I would have devalued and been like, well, at least I'm getting this. Right. So, and these are all just like some of these money mindsets that like we don't even realize we have. So that podcast is one of those things that I was doing. And I was listening to, I think he had like 2 episodes a week. I was listening to like every episode. And for like 6 months, I listened to all of them. Now I'm way behind now. But I would like to go back because it's these things just is constantly pushing us out of our comfort zone. So that's what I've realized for me. So that might not be the same for you as you think about, okay, what are some of the mindsets and the things that I actually have and what might be holding me back? It may not be helpful to push yourself way out of your comfort zone. But for me, what I've realized, like in order to shift a little bit, I need to be exposed to something that's like 10 points different. Another example of that, this book, Get Rich, Lucky Bitch. And yes, I just said that out loud. And yes, I have read this book and it has a ton of underlining and highlighting in it. I read this book. It says, release your money blocks and live a first-class life. This book I read because it is way beyond my comfort zone. She is very woo. She, is into the rocks and the crystals and the things and talks about the universe in different ways, But the bottom line is there is so much stuff in here that is true and applicable to my life. And it is crazy. I don't even think I can find the spot, but she talks about actual money blocks. And one of the things she's like, is you might have money blocks if you get given, one of the exercises she does is she gets you to go around and look around your house for money. So there's some very practical exercises in here. So it's not all woo. It's enough to push me out, but it really revealed some stuff and the way I was thinking about money and childhood stuff. And she gets you to do exercises thinking about as a kid, what did you believe about money and trying to go back and believe that. And I was like, what? I believe that? So there's some crazy stuff, but it really opened my eyes. And one of these exercises was go around your house, search your entire house for anything that is money. Now, money could be gift cards. Money could be coins and cash or other, when you've got US money and you shove it somewhere to travel, well, where, you know what I mean? And really looking and going through and finding money. And she's like, most of us hide our money, or we're not like a river, we're like a dam and we get given things, but they don't flow through us. She's like, how many of you have kept a gift card for a year and not used it because you were saving it for a special occasion? And I was literally like, this is me. I'll be like, oh, wow, we got this gift card, but I don't want to use it right away because I want to you only get gift cards at Christmas. And so you want to spread them out throughout the year. This is how was my mindset about still working on. So it's not totally in the past, but that was my mindset. It's well, we get these gift cards. It's the only time of year we get gift cards. So why would I use them all in the first 2 months of the year? Because then we don't have gift cards for the rest of the year. And her whole thing is the universe knows when it can't get things through us. She's like, the universe knows if you get given things and you hold on to them forever and you don't use them, you won't get more. She's like, if you get your gift card, she's like, so put them in a house, start using them, go out and use them. Because when the universe sees you putting things out and actually using the things you're given, more will come your way. You have to open the flow of money in your life. So an example from someone who's super woo and way out of my comfort zone, but revealed some massive things about how I thought about money, how I used money, how I hoarded money and didn't use. Joseph and I went for dinner in November and we used a gift card from Christmas that we'd received the year before. That I was like, okay, we're using these. Let's plan date nights. Let's go out. This has $10 on it. Perfect. Let's go share a dessert one night. Let's just use it up and get it moving. Anyway, so that's an example of money And one of the things I was working on in the last year and really diving into and learning more about. And there is still more, because as she says, you'll always be doing the work. We're always hitting a new level of hard, right? We're always working on things, developing, and we're like, yes, momentum. And all of a sudden we like start banging our head against the ceiling. We're like, what is going on? There's a new level and we have to go back and do the work again. And okay, what am I believing about this? What am I telling myself? What is the story that I'm telling myself about this area of my life? And do that work and then keep doing it. And then that gets us to a new level. And it's not just like that in money. It's like that in learning or self-development or in our job and feeling capped, and all of those different things. So does that example help? Is that good? Yeah, I can really only see Crystal nodding. So you and I are just having a conversation that Jessica's listening into that will be in the replay. Okay, Jessica put some exclamation marks. Yay. You're nodding too. Sweet. So mindsets actually like help us receive information. They help us suggest sensible goals, right? It's like, okay, well, this is a good goal to achieve. And they help us figure things out so that we're not always like puzzling. But when our mindsets become habitual and they define who we are and who we become, which is great if they're positive and they're growth focused, but if they're not and they're fixed, they can really hold us back. So I've got 3 things that you can do to develop a growth mindset. Again, do not remember where these are from. And here, let me see if I can copy and paste these 2 into the chat for you guys so you don't have to. Oh, I just closed the window. That's not helpful. Okay. Oh, and you can see the words. Okay. So there's 3 things you can do to develop a growth mindset. Now, this is just one person's perspective. It's not saying that this is the only 3 things you can do. And I've got a few extra resources and we can go through a few other things too in a couple minutes. But 1, you need to recognize that a growth mindset is not just good, but it's also supported by science. So a lot of times we think a lot of this like mindset coaching or all of this stuff is like kind of woo. That's the word I use for it because like people call themselves, hey, I'm woo, or like whatever, right? Like it's a lot of people that talk about mindset, talk about affirmations and talk about meditations and tend to be into yoga and card pulling and have their crystals and use oils and like all these things tend to go together. And so for those of us who are very like logical, we're like, I don't want woo. So then we negate all of the benefits of actually some of that stuff, which is supported by science. So it's not all woo. Anyway, that is just something that has really encouraged me and been like, Catherine, like you need to do this. Like this is scientific. So in other words, you need to be committed to developing a growth mindset and working on that. And that's something that I'm really trying to pursue in different areas of my life. And some areas of my life, it's easier to do than others. Okay. So it's easier right now for me to develop a mindset growth about, say, money or leadership or the stories I tell myself than it is for me to develop a growth mindset and ask what I can be better for in my marriage. Just an example, right? Like sometimes different areas of our life are easier to work on our mindset in than others. And it's okay as long as we rotate. We just got to keep rotating it. So that's the first one. The second one is that you can learn and teach others about how to develop and improve their abilities through adopting a growth mindset. So actually what I've been doing through Modern Planner, I realize like over the years has, by me teaching the things I was learning, I was reinforcing those things and continuing on that journey. So instead of like learning those things 5 years ago and then ignoring them, because I've been constantly talking about them and helping other people or teaching it or having to learn, like I'm constantly adopting that growth mindset and it's helped me to continue to learn as opposed to like, well, I learned this once and now I'm good. And so it says, this will help you to take control of your life, which is hugely empowering. Research shows that people who feel in control tend to perform better. It's a virtuous cycle. And then the third thing is listen out for your fixed mindset voice. When you hear that little critical voice in your head telling you that you can't do something, reply with a growth mindset approach and tell it that you can learn. And actually there's this book, it's a kid's book. And I was like, oh, I love it. So I might, I think I have to throw it in you can read it for free on Kindle Unlimited, but I think I want to get like a paperback for M. Anyway, but it's called I Can't Do That Yet. It's a kid's book. And there's like growth mindset work things, and there's actually like quite a few books for kids about like my strong mind, I believe in myself, thanks for the feedback, beautiful oops, your fantastic elastic brain. Like there's actually like all of these like really amazing books that yeah anyway that I'm excited because I'm like, okay, there's so many different opportunities to like even teaching right? Your brain does all the things that make you new, likes, red foods, favorite word is elbow, ping pong. Like anyway, it just like tells you all of these different things. Your brain helps you think and remember and name what you see and what you hear. It lets you move your body and feel both touch and emotions, right? Like just talking about what is in our brain and yeah. Okay. So that's a little bit of a sidebar. So there are a few other links that I want to share with you guys. And I've already kind of talked about how I have the way I'm wired. I have tended to lean towards fixed mindset. And so actually pursuing a growth mindset is something I have to do very, very, very purposefully. And what I mentioned before, but I'll just reiterate again, is reading books and listening to podcasts and talking to people that I don't currently believe with or in or agree with. So for me, having conversations and trying to be really open-minded and learn from people that I don't have hardly anything in common with. It's one of the things I loved about Imperfect Boss Camp that I went to the last 2 years is that it put me in rooms and around tables and sharing bunks with people that I have not much in common with and being able to ask, okay, like, so why do you believe in that? Or tell me about what it's like to live like this with these thoughts, with these perspectives, like, and being able to have those conversations in a really open place. And here's the thing about mindset, it can show up in a lot of different places. So one of my other favorite podcasts is Thinking Like a Boss by Kate Crocco, who her book just came in last week. Her book released on February 17th, I think. And I just got it in the mail last week. And so this is all uncover and overcome the lies holding you back from success. This is a book all about mindset. All about mindset. Like that's what this is. And it's about thinking like a boss. So it's about specifically like, you know, if you have your own business or things like that, but it works for anyone. Like it applies to anybody. So that's an example of like a book that we would read that and be like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good book. Well, it's actually mindset. And another one of my friends, guys, I have all my friends are writing books and it's so much fun. And I'm like, I want to write a book too. Transform Your Stories. This is Ashley Cox, who did our guest expert training back in January. Do you have that one, Crystal? Yeah. What are our stories? Our stories are the beliefs and the reactions and the mindsets that we have about life. This is a mindset book. But because it says transform your stories, right? But it's overcome your toxic stories, become a courageous and confident leader and impact the world. She specifically talks about mindset from a leadership perspective. What are the toxic stories and the mindsets we have about ourselves as leaders that are holding us back from leading other people well, right? What did you... Oh, thank you, Crystal. I was just like looking at the chat. So related to that is called A World Without Failures. Oh, now I need to see this. We're just going to pop into Amazon for a moment, guys. A World Without Failures. Oh, interesting. David hates making mistakes. Frustrated and angry at himself. Without mistakes, the world would have... Oh, it's so good. Oh, that's the same, like, looks like the same author as I Can't Do That Yet. Anyway, love it. Thank you for sharing. Oh, and then there's another one called Your Thoughts Matter. There's literally like a whole series. Guys, I'm discovering all of these things for kids. There's another one called The Girl Who Never Made Mistakes. Anyway, I also am trying to be very aware of the books that I'm buying for N and not getting and having books specifically that feature children and people with different color skin. And it's really hard. Can I just tell you that? It is so hard because there's not nearly as much stuff out there, but I'm trying to be really specific. So if there's 2 books that look similar, but one features kids that are not all white, I'm getting that one, right? But even something as simple as like, we were reading Curious George, and I'm like, 99% of the characters in Curious George are white. And it's just like, oh my goodness. Anyway, just one of the journeys that I'm on. And I have books in my Indigo cart because we've got a gift card for her. I'm like, okay, I'm buying her all books that have, anyway. I like myself. Ooh, these are great. Oh my gosh, there's so many. I love it. Okay. So now I need to stop looking at books because now I just opened that link because I was like, I don't want to forget to find it. Okay, back to my notes. All right. So these are just some things that I wanted to share, or this one. Successful women think differently. 9 habits to make you happier, healthier, and more resilient. Guess what? This book is all about mindset, right? We just frame it different ways. And sometimes being like, oh yeah, I'm totally open to reading a book about how successful women think differently. But for some reason, thinking about like how that affects our mind. So just being open to the fact that, okay, mindset, that's what this is talking about. That's what these books are discussing. So anyway, I just wanted to give you some examples from my own bookshelf of that. Okay. Let's do a quick mindset quiz. Okay. I found this one. It's super simple. And basically there's 6, here, let me grab it and I'll copy it in. Mindset quiz. Okay. So mindset quiz. What is your mindset? Do you have a fixed or growth mindset? Start reading the following statements and decide which ones you agree with most. Okay. So if you're like, oh, I agree with this, put like a star beside it or something. And if you don't agree with it as much. Okay. So the first one is, people have a certain amount of intelligence and there isn't any way to change it. Number 2, no matter who you are, there isn't much you can do to improve your basic abilities and personality. 3, people are capable of changing who they are. 4, you can learn new things and improve your intelligence. 5, people either have particular talents or they don't. You can't just acquire talent for things like music, writing, art, or athletics. 6, studying, working hard, and practicing new skills are all ways to develop new talents and abilities. So basically, I'm going to have to get rid of those. I put some little stars, but then it totally changed the formatting of my. So if you tend to agree with statements 1, 2, and 5, then you probably lean more towards fixed mindset. If you agree with statements 3, 4, and 6, however, then you probably tend to have a growth mindset. It's just a really simple thing. But for me, years ago, I would have believed that number 5 was true. People either have particular talents or you don't. You can't just acquire talent for things like music, writing, art, or athletics. But now that I've done the work of building my business and doing things, or I used to teach kids, and the kids that worked the hardest in dance sometimes improved and became the best over the kids that had the natural talent. And so it was really through my years of like teaching and seeing, or like teaching a voice student and someone who could not sing in pitch. And they really wanted to be able to sing better. They wanted to be able to sing in tune, and they were able to figure that out. And so it was really in my 20s when I realized, I'm like, yeah, we can learn anything we want to, but we just have to be committed to it enough. And we have to get rid of all the stories telling us we can't do it. That's the problem, is that most of us have so many stories about why we can't do something that we actually never learn how to do it or never put in the effort to grow and develop. So it all comes back to mindset. Okay. So Kate's workbook has a few questions. First, she talks about this. Take some time to celebrate you. Celebrate how you've pushed through difficult times. Celebrate how you never gave up. Celebrate the generosity you give to others. And remember that owning a business or having a job or raising children or traveling or whatever it is not for the faint of heart. You are special, you are determined, you are resilient, and you are a powerful woman. You've got this. And so a couple of the questions that she asks in her workbook are reflect. What have your highs and lows been over the past year and over the past few months? So let's just take a few minutes to actually answer that question. What have your highs and lows been over the past year or the past few months? And just write a few things down. I'll just mute myself so you don't hear my typing for like a minute. All right. So the things that what I like about the workbook is after she gets us to write down highs and lows from the past year, the next thing she says is let things go. What stories are you not letting go of? In what areas of your life and business can you practice more acceptance? And I actually think that this is the same for highs as it is for lows. So for instance, one of the things that was a high, like M loves the beach. She loves being at the cottage. So a story that I could be holding on to is we have our best family time at the beach. Right? Which I'm just going to write down right now. I hadn't written it down yet, but like I'd been thinking about it. So that's a story that I could hold on to. We have our best family time at the beach and feeling like we need to be at that cottage or at the beach to have really good quality family time, which is not true, but that is a story that I could be holding on to. I could also be holding on to, and I am, for instance, Modern Planner right now. 2019 was not nearly as successful as 2018 for me with Modern Planner. So a story that I can hold on to is that, like, I'm not cut out for this, or I'll never find enough people to make Modern Planner as profitable as I like to see it. Or, right, like there's so many stories I could tell myself about that. And it's something that I have to keep digging into. Like, what actually am I believing, and how do I shift that, and how do I adjust, right? So I love that. Let things go. What stories am I not letting go of? And it can be positive or negative. And then she has evaluate your stinking thinking. So when do you fall into this trap? When is the negative self-talk? And I didn't even know, guys, that negative self-talk was a thing and had a word and was like a scientifically like researched thing until I was, probably like 26 years old, and was like 6 or 8 months into like intense therapy. And I was like, oh wait, like there's a word for this. Yeah. Negative self-talk, the things that you tell. I'm like, well, my brain is talking to me all the time. I was like, is there a way to shut off the self-talk? Right. And so it was just something that like I wasn't even aware of. And so I would consider all of that to fall under the mindset stuff. Like, what are the things we're saying to ourselves? That determines and affects so many other things. So she's got some really great questions. We're not going to go through all of them and do them right now. But starting a mindset and wellness routine. So like, this is one of those things where like, yeah, we can say, oh, it's a little bit woo to like have affirmations and have mantras, right? Because mantras usually are associated, but it's like, yeah, I, as a kid, what was it? What did I call it? A confession. It was like saying these things about myself. And I had a full long page confession that I used to have memorized, and I don't remember all of it, but like, I am loved. And like, it was all of these different things. And I am a child of God, accepted and loved by God, my family. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I am valuable and precious. No one else can take my place and do what I'm called to do. Like, these were things that I had memorized as a kid, right? And so I think just sometimes we just have to change the word on it. And instead of a mantra, just have a confession, have an affirmation, right? If meditation is kind of whatever it is, like whatever word works for us. But she encourages us to create like a bit of a mindset and wellness routine. And what are the things that we should cut out that are no longer serving us. So I would really encourage you to take some time to go through the workbook that she has there. And then I will just put these other things. I'm going to send you links to 2 articles that I found. One is, they're both referencing the mindset book that Carol Dweck, I think Dweck is her name, Carol Dweck. And there are 8 ways to shift to a growth mindset, 25 ways to develop a growth mindset. And then the other link that I will add in the email is Brendan Burchard. I don't know if any of you have heard about him, but he's very much like a mindset, positivity kind of coach. And he has a 10-minute YouTube video on how to develop a growth mindset. And it is also really good. So I've got those links that I will put in there with the replay of this. But now let's just open it up. Questions, thoughts, your own experiences, anything. Let's just chat about it for a few minutes.
Trying to find my card. Before the call, I just kind of wrote down a quick couple of thoughts about mindset. And one of them, I think, when I thought of mindset, I think of vows that I've made myself, and just my own identity and who I think I am, right? And how that definitely plays a role. And I love that was right away answered when you said that sometimes they're working for you and sometimes they're working against you. And I find, I'm learning lots of what those are.
And it's good to just be aware, right? Like, to actually be, and one of the things I think it might have been that get rich lucky bitch book about money. And go ahead and type your stuff out, Jessica, whenever you're ready. But it was about something that you just said right now. And now it was the comment about vows that you made. Sometimes we make promises to ourselves. I will never blah, 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 blah. And then we forget about it. But the bottom line is that promise, we still spoke it and it still exists. We've never gone
foundational.
Back.
It's so foundational.
And they hold on because the words that we speak have power, and we know that, right? And so that's part of all of this, is just really like realizing that, like, yeah, I've said things in the past, or I said, yeah, I'm never going to do that. Like, I used to say, I will never homeschool my kids because I don't want to be their teacher and their mom. Like, that's something I said. And now in the last year, I've been like, actually, I think I might be open to homeschooling. Okay. So when I said I will never homeschool my kids, I'm going to go back to that place. I remove those words. I may homeschool my kids. That might be something I do. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what years of their life that looks like, but I may, and I am open to that. And I am not going to hold myself to this promise and this thing that I said 10 years ago. Right. Or whatever. And so, yeah, anyway, that's great. Jessica says, I've learned about my mindset. In the last few years, I've learned that I can be successful on my own, not without support, but my mindset was often attached to the people I worked with for 17 years. And then that all changed. So just learning, like, you can be successful on your own. I don't have to be part of a big team or like whatever. Like, who I am as a person is valuable and has value to offer. Yeah, I think that's so good. I'm still connected, but I can let out what's been inside and really let that out. Yeah. It's so good. And I think that's a big part of it, is just so many times we keep ourselves in a box, or we are actually we're the ones holding ourselves back. And sometimes we just need to get out of our own way. And that's what I think a lot of this like mindset stuff is realizing these stories and these things that we're telling us and ourselves, and learning how to remove them so that we can step into, being more confident leaders, so that we can be making more money, so that we can be adding more value to the world, so that we can be, delegating without having to micromanage, and all of these things. So, yeah. Oh, so good. So Jessica said yes, but my mindset didn't even think it was possible. It didn't even cross my mind. It's so good to see like how these things come and show up, and how we're able to learn and grow. So yay. Now my mindset is a blank slate of opportunity for what is ahead. I love it. So good. Yay. Any other thoughts or questions or anything before we wrap up?
I was just going to unmute myself. I'm still unmuted. Never mind. My thought is, thank you for this conversation, because, there's just lots going on in my own head and life at the moment. So to just kind of anchor myself to that question about what's in my mindset, and the vows thing, and the scenario of you saying you reached back and was like, no, I'm going to change that, is way huge in my head right now, because I've been carrying one for about 16 years. And so, and not knowing how to change going forward. And knowing that it could be that simple of just, I'm just going to change that. And now I can change how I process and work things out. So I'm just going to be completely real.
Yeah.
There's a lot of complicated stuff in my life. Like, not only
Jessica. So Jessica's question in here is, how often do you renew or adjust your mindset? I am actually learning that it's all the time. I used to think like I could think one way about something and like just like leave it for a year or two and then like come back to it. I'm very much the box. You know how there's all these analogies of like men and women and how women are like spaghetti and everything's all like mixed in. I am not like that at all. I mean, I am maybe in some ways, but for the most part, I'm like everything has its little box and I pull out that box, I deal with that box, I put the lid back on and I put it away. And like I just am very compartmentalized. And so what I'm learning is that I used to, in answer to, this is answering your question, Jessica, I promise. But in answer to your question, like I used to be like, okay, it's therapy, pull out this therapy box. And now I will allow myself to self-reflect, and I will allow myself to look and introvert and like peer inside of my soul and ask these deep, meaningful questions. And I realized like, I don't have to just do that at therapy. Like I can do that anytime I want. That's where journaling and like having like prompt questions and things like that started becoming a play for me. But I tend to, oh, okay, it's date night. Let's think, pull out the date night box and pull out the marriage box and now do something to like work. Life doesn't work like that. And we tend to not be very successful human beings when we function like that. That has been my entire life. And so I'm really learning, like, I kind of have to have these sometimes I need to put a lid on a box and put it away for a while. But most of the time I need to just keep the lids off and I need to throw them out and I need to have all of my boxes open and be able to notice when I'm, oh, this is coming up about finances. What am I thinking about that? And actually like journal and dive into it. Or I have a thought or I've got something that comes up and I'm actually learning that like my mindset, because there's so many different areas of my life, I'm constantly renewing and adjusting and changing how I think about things. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's what I'm learning. Like, it's a journey, and I might not change my mindset about this for like a year, but other things have been constantly changing throughout that time. So, oh, Crystal, my therapist calls me a wall density. We are working on. Yeah, I know a few things about walls. Yeah, so good. Yeah, you guys, this was such a good conversation. I'm so glad we did this. And I realized like this is not like my thing, but I've realized like how much I've had to learn about this to help me change my mindsets and and adjust. And yeah, it's been so good. So thank you for joining me today for this call.